world, it's Keely and I'm back for another video. This is just a kind of loose announcement video of something that I want to do over the spring and summer for my reading. I have really kind of slowed down with my reading, which I mentioned in a previous video, and have just been working on a lot of other things like work, but also running and working out and other life things. And where my reading is trending is back towards fantasy. I still have a lot of interest in reading a bunch of horror and like weird girl stuff and vampire books. I still have that. I'm still doing that. But this is kind of something I've been thinking about over the last week. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I just make a video for this week and talk about it? And what I'm talking about is basically doing like a FOMO fantasy type of project for myself, where I'm finally tackling these massive fantasy universes that I have never read, or ones that have come out recently that I don't want to necessarily get added to the list of ones that I've never read. Fantasy is my most read genre every year, pretty much always has been. And I've read a lot of the big name like series. I've read at least parts of them. I read the first 4 books in Song of Ice and Fire. I haven't read Dance with Dragons. I read the first, I think, 5 or 6 books of Wheel of Time. You get the point. Like, I've read some big fantasy, and I've also read a lot of other like little fantasy here and there. And I have a whole bunch of fantasy right here, and I wanted to just kind of talk through them with you, see if these are ones that you would also recommend. Are there other books by these authors that you would recommend? What kind of prompted this was the book that I'm reading right now. I'm basically just back in a Dungeon Crawler Carl universe. I finished up book 6 and now I am about a third of the way through book 7, This Inevitable Ruin. Book 8 comes out next week. So happy that I'm not like super behind on this series that is very popular right now. So I'm not really having any FOMO from it because I'm very familiar with what's happening with the world, and I'm really enjoying book 7. That's my husband's favorite book so far of the series, and we're both very excited to get book 8 when it comes out next week. And I was on our fantasy, the Reddit fantasy subreddit, and saw this post where people were talking about like big series or just fantasy series in general that they don't know if we will ever get another book. And they were trying to not talk about Song of Ice and Fire or Patrick Rothfuss. I forget what that series is called. The Name of the Wind is the first one. And talk about like other ones. And I realized how many of these big series all of these Reddit users have read, and I was feeling kind of like, damn, I've had that on my shelf for how long and I've never read it, or ones that I just added. And I decided that like, why not? Fantasy is something I really enjoy. I have definitely been kind of, once again, like locking my brain down and really relying on the things that work for self-care for me, and reading fantasy, or right now kind of sci-fi with Carl, is one of those things. And so I went through my shelves and I grabbed all of the ones that I have. I cannot find my copy of Name of the Wind. I don't remember getting rid of it. I wonder if I did. I really didn't think that I did, but I can't find it. And it was a mass market paperback. I don't know where it is. So I'm afraid that I did get rid of Name of the Wind. So Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss is on this list. I do have an ebook copy. So that one is definitely one that I would like to read. I know there's 2 books, and I think, is it a novella or a short story or something in that universe? It doesn't seem like he's ever going to finish it, but I would at least like to read those 2 books. So we'll start there. Patrick Rothfuss, Name of the Wind. The next one that I would really like to read, and this came up on the list of fantasy that they don't know if we're going to get a next one, is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. So the second book has come out. I think the second book came out a long time ago, and I saw someone posting that there may have been an update from this author that he's working on the next one. Something like that. But this is one that I started reading before and I just never finished it. I was enjoying it, but I just got distracted by other things. But I've heard that this one is just a really fun time, and so I'm excited to read it. It says, glory never gets old. Clay Cooper and his band were once the best of the best, the most feared and renowned crew of mercenaries this side of the Heartwild. Their glory days long past, the mercs have grown apart and grown old, fat, drunk, or a combination of the 3. Then an ex-bandmate turns up at Clay's door with a plea for help, the kind of mission that only the very brave or the very stupid would sign up for. It's time to get the band back together. Like I said, just sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. I've heard that it's a lot of fun, so I would like to read this one. Then this is the only Richard Swan that I physically own a copy of, but I do have ebook versions, so I am very interested in reading. I think this is his first trilogy, The Justice of Kings, and this one is about a justice who is a detective, judge, and executioner all in one, and something in their universe is going wrong, and so it's hard to be a justice these days. I've heard very, very good things about this trilogy. I'm also super duper interested in his newest trilogy that he's working on that's like spookier. So I'll put a picture right here. I do have the first book on Kindle, so I would really just like to finally read some Richard Swan. I also really need to read some James Islington. So I have finished this book, which is the first book in the Lycanius trilogy, The Shadow of What Was Lost, and then I never moved on. And unfortunately, it's been such a long time that I'm going to need to reread this massive book and just plow my way through the trilogy and then move into his newest series, which I think is The Will of the Many. And I know the second book has come out for that one. So I do want to read this whole trilogy and then move into that trilogy, which I've also heard very, very good things about. This one is, it says, it has been 20 years since the godlike augurs were overthrown and killed. Those who once served them that they gifted were spared only after accepting the rebellion's 4 tenets, which vastly limited their powers. Davian suffers the consequences of a war lost before he was even born. When he discovers that he wields the forbidden powers of the augurs, he sets into motion a chain of events that will change everything. To the west, a young man whose fate is intertwined with Davian's wakes up in a forest covered in blood with no memory of who he is. And in the far north, an ancient enemy begins to stir. I loved this when I read it, but the reason that I'm going to have to reread it in order to move on to the next 2 to get that one read is because at the same time I also read Malice by John Gwynne. Now, I don't think these are similar beyond having like a male as the chosen one and it being a fantasy, but I definitely have a mixture of the 2 books, the 2 main lead characters formed in my head, and I can't remember what plot point I'm remembering that goes with this book versus the other book. So the next series I would really like to read is The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne, the first book being Malice. I read this years ago. It is my sister's favorite series. It is one of Sydney's favorite series. I know there are some diehard John Gwynne fans, and I saw he's got a new series coming out soon. So it says, the world is broken. Corbin wants nothing more than to be a warrior under King Brennan's rule to protect and serve, but that day will come all too soon, and the price he pays will be in blood. Evnus has sacrificed too much, it seems, but what he wants, the power to rule, will soon be in his grasp, and nothing will stop him once he has started on his path. Verdus is the newest member of the war band for the High Prince, Nethair. He is one of the most skilled swordsmen to come out of his homeland, yet he is always under the shadow of his older brother. Nethair has ideas and a lot of plans. Many of them don't involve his father, the High King Aquilus, nor does he agree with his father's idea to summon his fellow kings to council. The Banished Lands has a violent past where armies of men and giants clashed in battle, but now giants stir anew, stones weep blood, and there are sightings of giant worms. Those who can still read the signs see a threat far greater than the ancient wars, for if the Black Sun gains ascendancy, mankind's hopes and dreams will fall to dust. I remember really loving it when I read it, and then I just didn't continue on, so I definitely want to do that. I've got 2 books from the same author here, and that author is Joe Abercrombie. So a couple years ago, I read this one, The Blade Itself, which is the first book in the First Law trilogy, and I specifically went on eBay and bought the trilogy in these covers because I really enjoyed it and I wanted to keep going. I started the second one and then didn't finish it, and now it's been years, so I need to reread this one in order to move on to the next 2. This one is hard to see on the back because it's dark in here because it's raining. It says, Logan Ninefingers, infamous barbarian, has finally run out of luck. Caught in one feud too many, he's on the verge of becoming a dead barbarian, leaving nothing behind him but bad songs, dead friends, and a lot of happy enemies. Nobleman, dashing officer, and paragon of selfishness, Captain Jazal Dan Luthar has nothing more dangerous in mind than fleecing his friends at cards and dreaming of glory in the fencing circle, but war is brewing, and on the battlefields of the frozen north, they fight by altogether bloodier rules. Inquisitor Glokta is a torturer. He would like nothing better than to see Jazal come home in a box, but then Glokta hates everyone, cutting treason out of the Union, one confession at a time, leaves little room for friendship. His latest trail of corpses may lead him right to the rotten heart of government if he can stay alive long enough to follow it. Enter the wizard Bayaz, a bald old man with a terrible temper and a pathetic assistant. He could be the first of the Magi. He could be a spectacular fraud, but whatever he is, he's about to make the lives of Logan, Jazal, and Glokta a whole lot more difficult. Glokta. That's hard to say. Murderous conspiracies rise to the surface, old scores are ready to be settled, and the line between hero and villain is sharp enough to draw blood. Unpredictable, compelling, wildly funny, and packed with unforgettable characters, The Blade itself is noir fantasy with a real cutting edge. That is hard as shit to read on the back of this. Again, I remember really, really loving it, and then just didn't finish it. So I do want to finish this. And then the other one by Joe Abercrombie that I have is The Devils, which I think is his newest one, and I believe is also the start of a series, I've heard, but I think, if what I've heard is correct, that this will be a series where each book is kind of a standalone in this big universe. It says, holy work sometimes requires unholy deeds. Brother Diaz has been summoned to the holy city, where he is certain a commendation and a grand holy assignment await him, but his new flock is made up of unrepentant murderers, practitioners of ghastly magic, and outright monsters. The mission he is tasked with will require bloody measures from them all in order to achieve its righteous ends. Elves lurk at our borders and hunger for our flesh, while greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions and comfort. With a hellish journey before him, it's a good thing Brother Diaz has the devils on his side. Very excited for this one. It's got quotes on the back from authors that I've read from and really loved, so I'm hoping that I will enjoy this one. This one is actually book 2 in a trilogy, but I need to reread book 1 in order to continue on and then get book 3. That is the Legendborn cycle by Tracy Deonn. This is a King Arthur type retelling following a black woman in college. And when I read the first one, I absolutely loved it. I was so excited for the second one, and then I waited too long, and when I finally came back and started the second one, I had no idea what the hell was going on, so I realized that I will need to reread the first one. They are all pretty big, but I am very, very excited to get back into this universe. Then we've got The Wolf of Owen Yarrow by K.S. Veloso. I have not heard a ton of people talking about this one in a couple years, but when it came out, people were really, really loving it. This is Chronicles of the Wolf Queen. This is a finished trilogy, so I am hoping that I will enjoy it and be able to read the next 2. It says, they called me the bitch queen, the she-wolf, because I murdered a man and exiled my king the night before they crowned me. Born under the crumbling towers of her kingdom, Queen Talion was the shining jewel and legacy of the bloody war of the wolves. It nearly tore her nation apart, but her arranged marriage to the son of a rival clan heralds peace. However, he suddenly disappears before their reign can begin, and the kingdom is fractured beyond repair. Years later, he sends a mysterious invitation to meet. Talion journeys across the sea in hopes of reconciling their past. An assassination attempt quickly dashes those dreams. Stranded in a land she doesn't know, with no idea who she can trust, Talion will have to embrace her namesake. It's got some big names on the back saying that they really loved it, so I'm hoping that I will also really love it. Then we've got The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wang. This one was on that list of fantasy that they didn't know if we would get another one, and someone said that this author has said that there won't be another one anytime soon because they're having issues with world building and like connecting the world. This one says, on a mountainside at the edge of the Kaiganese Empire live the most powerful fighters in the world, warriors capable of raising the sea and wielding blades of ice. For centuries, the fighters of the Kusanagi Peninsula have held the Empire's enemies at bay, earning their treacherous spit of land the name the Sword of Kaigan. Born into Kusanagi's legendary Matsuda family, 14-year-old Mamoru has always known his purpose, to master his family's fighting techniques and defend his homeland. But when an outsider arrives and pulls back the curtain on Kaigan's alleged age of peace, Mamoru realizes that he might not have much time before he has to become the fighter he was bred to be. Even worse, the empire he was born to defend might stand on a foundation of lies. Misaki told herself that she left the passions of her youth behind when she married into the Matsuda house. Determined to be a good housewife and mother, she hid away her sword along with everything everything from her days as a fighter in a faraway country. But with her son asking questions about the outside world, the threat of invasion looming on the horizon, and her frigid husband grating on her nerves, Misaki finds the fighter in her clawing its way back to the surface. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It looks like it swaps between perspectives. Again, I haven't heard people really talking about this one recently because there was so much hype when it first came out, but I would like to get to it. Then we've got two of like bigger fantasy series. We have The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. This one is this the Gentleman Bastards series, I think. This one was also on that list. People are saying that Scott Lynch has recently said that he's working on the next one. I am excited to get to this one. I've heard that this one is a lot of fun. It says, an orphan's life is harsh and often short in the mysterious island city of Comore, but young Locke Lamora dodges relentless danger, becoming a thief under the tutelage of a gifted con artist. As leader of the band of light-fingered brothers known as the Gentleman Bastards, Locke is soon infamous, fooling even the underworld's most feared ruler. But in the shadows lurks someone still more ambitious and deadly. Faced with a bloody coup that threatens to destroy everyone and everything that holds meaning in his mercenary life, Locke vows to beat the enemy at his own brutal game or die trying. This is one I've had for years and years and years, and I've just never read, so I would really love to get that trilogy or whatever it's going to be read. Probably the biggest one, well, definitely the biggest in terms of page count on this, but also one of the biggest universes on this list is Brandon Sanderson's world building. So the first one that I have is book 1 of the Stormlight Archive, The Way of Kings. I have book 1 and 2 in these mass market paperbacks. I think, how many are there now? 5? Winds of Truth, I think, was the most recent one. I did start reading this one a while ago because I heard that it reads really fast, but then I just didn't continue on. So I do want to actually have this one read because this one is another one that I bought when I started my YouTube channel in like 2014, and I've never read it. So I would really, really love to read this one. This one says, I long for the days before the last desolation, before the heralds abandoned us and the knights radiant turned against us, when there was still magic in Roshar and honor in the hearts of men. In the end, not war but victory proved the greatest test. Did our foes see that the harder they fought, the fiercer our resistance? Fire and hammer forge a sword, time and neglect rust it away. So we won the world, yet lost it. Now there are 4 whom we watch. The surgeon, forced to forsake healing and fight in the most brutal war of our time. The assassin who weeps as he kills. The liar who wears her scholar's mantle over a thief's heart. And the prince whose eyes open to the ancient past as his thirst for battle wanes. One of them may redeem us, one of them will destroy us. Just excited to finally get into this universe. I have read, what's that series that he made for kids? That's like the library something. I read the first book in that, and I read the first book in the first Mistborn trilogy twice. But I've never finished that trilogy, and I haven't read anything else from Brandon Sanderson, but he's on my shelf, and so I do want to give this one a try and hopefully really enjoy it. Then we have some others that are kind of standalones right now, either because they're going to remain standalones or because the next book hasn't come out, or I just haven't read it yet to get the next book. So the first one is The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. I've heard that this one is a lot of fun. People really, really loved the world building in it. I don't know when book 2 comes out, but I am excited to get to this one. This one came out, I think, last year. And it says, let us fly now to the Empire of Orun, where after 24 years of peace, the reign of Bursun the Brusque has come to an end. In the dizzying heat of midsummer, 7 exceptional warriors, thinkers, and strategists compete to replace him. When one of them is murdered, it falls to Nima Kra, the Emperor's brilliant, idiosyncratic high scholar, to find the killer and fight for the throne. Nima believes she is alone, but we are here to help if all she has to do is let us in. If she succeeds, we will win an empire. If she fails, death awaits her, but we won't let that happen. We are the Raven, and we are magnificent. Yeah, it says it's book 1 of the Eternal Path trilogy. I don't know if book 2 has been announced yet, but I would really like to get that one read before book 2 comes out. We've got one of my favorite authors ever, one of her most recent books. This is Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. I have a list of favorite authors that I'm working my way through all of their books, and T. Kingfisher is one of those, and I have read, I think, 5 or 6 of their books, but there's been a couple that have come out this year that I haven't read yet, and this is the first one in at least a duology, I think it is. that people were really enjoying. It says, Hala has unexpectedly inherited the estate of a wealthy uncle. Unfortunately, she is also saddled with money-hungry relatives full of devious plans for how to wrest the inheritance away from her. While locked in her bedroom, Hala inspects the ancient sword that's been collecting dust on the wall since before she moved in. Out of desperation, she unsheathes it, and suddenly a man appears. His name is Sarkis, he tells her, and he is an immortal warrior trapped in a prison of enchanted steel. Sarkis is sworn to protect whoever wields the sword, and for Hala, a most unusual wielder, he finds himself not fending off grand armies and deadly assassins, but instead everything from kindly seeming bandits to roving inquisitors to her own in-laws. But as Hala and Sarkis grow closer, they overlook the biggest threat of all, the sword itself. I just really, really love T. Kingfisher's books. They're very, very comforting and cozy, so I'm hoping that I will enjoy this one. This is from the library, so I gotta read it quickly and get it back. And then the other one I have from the library is this one that just came out. This one is The Red Winter by Cameron Sullivan. It's got a quote on the front from T. Kingfisher. And this one says, in 1785, Professor Sebastian Grave receives the news he fears most. The terrible beast of Galvadon has returned, and the French countryside runs red in its wake. Sebastian knows the beast. A monster slayer with centuries of experience, he joined the hunt for the creature 20 years ago and watched it slaughter its way through a long and bloody winter. Even with the help of his indwelling demon, Sarmadel, who takes payment in living hearts, it nearly cost him his life to bring the monster down. Now, 2 decades later, Sebastian has been recalled to the hunt of Antoine Avenel de Aucerne, an estranged lover who shares a dark history with the beast and a terrible secret with Sebastian. Drawn by both the chance to finish the beast for good and the promise of a reconciliation with Antoine, Sebastian cannot refuse. But Galvadon is not as he remembers it, and Sebastian's unfinished business is everywhere he looks. Years of misery have driven the people to desperation, and France teeters on the edge of revolution. Sebastian's arcane activities, not to mention his demonic counterpart, have also attracted the inquisitorial eye of the French clergy, and the beast is poised to close his jaws around them all and plunge the continent into war. Sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. It gives me very slight Witcher vibes, only because it's like a monster hunter. Nothing more than that. But I am excited to read that one, and I assume that it's a standalone, but I don't actually know. This one I know has more than one out, but this is the only one I have so far. This one is Heavenly Bodies by Imani Ario, and I think this is a romantasy, but I've heard amazing things about it, so that's why I got it. It says, in a world ruled by the cruel and merciless stars, Ilara has been cursed by fate. A prophecy promises she will fall for a star, but that it will kill them both. So when Erit, star of wrath and war, descends to wreak havoc on Ilara's kingdom of night, she flees her home only to be captured by the neighboring Helios kingdom of light, and falls straight into the arms of an enemy prince. Fearing that Erit might turn his sights to Helios next, Prince Lorenzo is forced to train Ilara as a weapon, one worthy of battling against the tyrannical reign of the stars. But there are shadows even within the kingdom of light, and they threaten to reveal the darkness in Lorenzo's past and the ancient magic that slumbers in Ilara's veins. And with it all comes an undeniable star-crossed pull between Ilara and Lorenzo that neither can seem to resist. Yeah, so this is book 1 of the Heavenly Bodies series. I saw they did have book two when I went to the store to get this one, but if I enjoy it, I will get book 2. Then we have this one. I don't know if this is a standalone, but this one is The Second Death of Locke by V.L. Bovolino. I saw a lot of people talking about this when it first came out. It came out not that long ago. It says, Gray Flynn has dedicated her life to her mage, Kier. She will be his blade on the battlefield, his healer and protector. The deep well of raw power inside her is Kier's to wield. They are bound together by blood and magic, but there is one truth Gray dare not reveal, not even to Kier. When a quest to protect the child of an enemy kingdom pulls them into a dangerous mission, Gray will need to decide what she's willing to sacrifice to protect her secret. For Gray is no ordinary magical well, and if she dies, all magic dies with her. Very excited for that one. Then we have 2 that I know book 2 has not come out yet, so I have time. We have Silver Cloak by L.K. Stephen. Sydney read this one recently and absolutely loved it. This one says 2 decades ago, the Blood Moons ruthlessly murdered Saffron Killeran's parents, destroying her idyllic childhood. Hell-bent on revenge, she lies her way into Silver Cloak Academy, the training ground for her city's elite order of detectives, with a single goal: to bring the Blood Moons to justice. But when Saph's deception is exposed, rather than being cast out, she's given a rare opportunity to go go undercover and tear the blood moons down from the inside. Descending into a world where pleasure and pain are the most powerful currencies, Saf must commit some truly heinous deeds to keep her cover and her life. Not only are there rival gangs and sinister smuggling rings to contend with, but there's also her growing feelings for the Kingpin's tortured son, with his vicious pet fallow wolf, his dark past, and the curious prophecy foretelling his death at Saffron's hand. With each day testing her loyalties further, Saf finds her web of lies becoming harder to spin, and when one false step could destroy everything and everyone she's ever loved, the detective who's dedicated her life to vengeance just might die for it. This is book 1 of the Silver Cloak saga. I don't know when book 2 comes out. I need to look that up, and I should probably make a list of like these books I need to read before the next one comes out so I can stay on track. And the final one that I have a physical copy of is Half City by Kate Golden. I'm so excited for this one. This one is book 1 of the Harker Academy series, I think. I know book 2 comes out kind of soon. It says Viv Abbott is an average 21-year-old girl. She lives in an expensive city where the rent is too high, works long hours at a thankless job, and is dating a guy she doesn't even like in the hopes of winning her prickly mother's approval. She also happens to be a demon hunter. Ever since her father's murder, she's been forced to hunt deviants alone, meaning everyone, including her family, sees her as an outsider, until the day she crosses paths with a dangerously alluring demon, Reed Graveheart. The reformed deviant tells her of a school for people just like her, Harker Academy for Deviant Defense. If she enrolls, she'll learn to hone her craft, work with other hunters, and never be alone again. But Viv has a deadly secret, one that not even her new friends at Harker can know about. Not if the school might hold the answers to untangling the mystery surrounding Viv's father's death. When strange occurrences begin to plague the students, Viv will have to figure out who she can trust, all while trying to ace her classes, avoid falling for a demon, and make it through her first year at Harker in one piece. How hard could it be? I'm very excited. I've heard that it gives Buffy vibes, and I am such a sucker for anything that has to do with demons and any kind of like magic schools, so very excited for this. Well, the final gigantic universe that I would really like to finally read is, well, I'm not going to finish it this summer, let's be real, but get into the Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. I have a handful of her books on my Kindle. I need to like make a spreadsheet of the books that I have and what series they are in. I know that the first book in the first trilogy, the Farseer trilogy, is Assassin's Apprentice. There is a booktuber, and I'm blanking on her name, I will have it linked down below, that is doing a sob along for the summer to get into the Realm of the Elderlings, because I've heard that it is incredibly emotional journey to read all of the books. It's one that like a massive fantasy series that I've been wanting to get into for a long time, but it's very daunting, so I've never actually dove into it, but I would really like to. So that is the final one that I really have in terms of like series I just haven't even started yet. There are lots of other fantasy series that are ongoing. So like Christopher Buehlman's Daughter's War series, the 3rd book is coming out soon. I will read that because I've read the first 2. Martha Wells has a fantasy series going on right now. There was Queen Demon was the second one. I forget what the first one was. Witch King was the first one. Queen Demon was the second one. I've read both of those, so I'm excited for the 3rd one. The next Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi is coming out. I have 1 book left in Amari and the Night Brothers that I need to read. Just lots of series ongoing all the time. I need to add some of these to my series tracker and make sure that my series tracker is updated. That is obviously not all of them, but those are the ones that are kind of at the forefront of my mind. So if you have fantasy series that you feel kind of like left behind because you haven't read them yet, let me know what those are, and let me know if you're doing any projects for spring and summer, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.